Good Thursday morning. Mets fans still basking in the glow of their owner going out and signing Carlos Correa. And we've got a huge local football game tonight as the Jets and the Jaguars in a game that matters severely for both of these teams and their chances at the playoffs will meet at MetLife tonight in a deluge, in a cyclone, in a bomb cyclone, in a full-blown flood with 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Just the spot you'd like Zach Wilson to get right in, right? Oh, my goodness. But we're looking forward to it, and hopefully that Jets defense comes up big, and we'll be sitting here tomorrow on our last day before Christmas talking about how the Jets still have a shot. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
I am still basking in that limelight you talk about when we signed Alex Correa and came to an agreement, at least on the deal. And I know the whole station was just overrun by it yesterday, as we were yesterday morning. But, I mean, I'm still trying to figure all this stuff out. And then you find out that they trade James McCann to the Baltimore Orioles.
That's right. That happened last night.
Now, didn't he have a $24 million?
He had $24 million left on that contract, yes.
And this is why you love the owner, Steve Cohen. Because not only does he spend money on players, he realizes when he doesn't spend the money the right way, he's willing to cut bait and cut loose those players. So the first example of that was Robinson Cano, of course.
That's right.
They bought out the remaining part of his contract. They DFA'd him. They said, "See you later. We have room. We have to create room for other players. You just don't have it anymore, essentially." And now with this trade of James McCann to the Orioles, how much of that $24 million are the Orioles paying of the contract that is left over?
$5 million of the $24 million.
Well, just think about that for a second. So $19 million, Steve Cohen's, just to get rid of a player, is paying $19 million to clear his roster of a spot.
Right, and he probably would have paid all of it, but he's thinking, well, man, it's a little ridiculous. At least give me $5 back. Just give me $5 back. Steve Cohen loves money so much he also eats it. That's what he's doing with these contracts.
But that's the point. The point is that we have a guy that is all in financially, man. He really is, and the disparity and the difference between what he is for the Met fan and for the ownership, of the Mets compared to what the Yankees have devolved into is stark in its differences.
Right, and think about situations that are similar to the James McCann situation for the Mets, similar to the Robinson Cano situation. There's two players right now that Brian Cashman is desperate to get rid of, and he may end up getting rid of them. But he could have already done that if the ownership with the Yankees, Hal and his partners, operated like Steve Cohen did. Meaning, hey, I'm just cutting Josh Donaldson. I don't care. There had been guys in the past that the Yankees really missed on, way more so than Josh Donaldson, like Kayagawa that they brought over. Guy was awful. They just kept him in the minors. They buried him, and they just basically, he sat there. Jacoby Ellsbury, with all the injuries he had, they basically just made him disappear. But they're not doing that now. So they could flat out cut Josh Donaldson. They could flat out release
they're not going to do that.
Aaron Hicks. And they're not going to do that because of the financial situation. Or they could trade Josh Donaldson to some small market team, pay, 90% of the contract just to get him out of here and free up a spot, and they're not going to do that either. So we know that the Yankees have the second highest payroll in baseball, but the way they are operating,
especially compared to the Mets.
Right, does not feel like it.
If the Mets weren't doing what they're doing, then we are not talking about the Yankees the way we're talking about the Yankees. So the Yankees were always the evil empire. They were the one that, that George Steinbrenner always wanted, that free agent. He always wanted to bring in that name. He needed stars. He wanted to rebuild the brand. And nobody could rebuild the brand better than George Steinbrenner. And he did. And it is a behemoth of a brand. And I always say that. And I say that with respect, honestly, that the Yankees stand above pretty much every franchise, maybe with the exception of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, there could be people out there who say, well, what about the Pittsburgh Steelers? What about the Lakers? What about the Celtics? Yeah, there are legacy franchises, don't get me wrong, and there are legacy franchises in every sport. But the Yankees and the Cowboys, everybody knows them. Internationally, everybody knows them. And it's their history, it's their players, it's their success, it's their ownership that have built these two big brands into the biggest of all sports brands here in this country. And now the Mets, with this owner that is willing to go to any degree to get a winner here, will do whatever it takes. And he has now become, he's not bombastic at all like George Steinbrenner was, but he's the 2022 version of George Steinbrenner and the decisions that he's making and the way that he's making them.
Oh, sure. I mean, and we have not seen something like this in sports other than like we talked about with the Golden State Warriors. That's the only other time that we've seen it. And the Warriors, I mean, they benefited from it and they've won multiple championships, and that's what Steve Cohen wants to do.
Well, and they also they had to keep their own players.
That's right.
And they were allowed to, pierce some of that luxury tax because of their own players.
That's right.
And the success that those players have had, as opposed to our guy who is bringing in basically mercenaries.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's what he's done, and I know that some people will continue to do the buy a championship thing. Nobody cares about that if the Mets win a World Series. Nobody. You're not going to be able to knock the Met fan off their pedestal if and when the Mets win the World Series by saying you went out and bought it. Doesn't matter. You still have to go and play, and we know that money doesn't always translate into victories. It doesn't always work out that way.
Well, the Yankees have proven that.
Right, exactly. Now, back in 2009, they made the right moves, and they brought in big free agents like CeCe Sabathia, Mark Teixeira, and A.J. Burnett, and those were the pieces that they needed to go and win another World Series. So it does work, and it hasn't necessarily worked for the Dodgers as much as you'd like it to if you were a Dodger fan, even though they only won the one World Series in the COVID year.
They're relevant every year.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
I would say the same thing about the Yankees. The Yankees are relevant every year. Just haven't been able to get over the Houston Astros.
Right, and that's another thing, too, that I won't take lightly. How many times, as a Met fan, has September meant nothing? I mean, nothing. We sat here together in the 5 years we've done this show and had multiple Septembers like that where they are completely irrelevant. That we get into September, we're talking football, Jerry buries the Mets at the end of the update because they're 20 games under 500 and nobody gives a crap. And those days are over. Those days are over.
Well, I would say that you could also take that feeling and attach it to the New York Jets and the New York the New York Giants in terms of football.
Sure.
And all we say every year is, man, be relevant in December. Be relevant in December. And here we are. We have a Thursday night game, and I know Al Michaels from working with him for 2 years looked at that schedule and goes, oh, man, we got Jets, Jaguars in December. That's going to suck.
Right, especially up at MetLife. It's not even like we can go down to Jacksonville and maybe have a little bit of a warmer climate.
Yeah. Well, the number one export out of Jacksonville.
Hotels?
No.
That's the only thing I know that Jacksonville has.
Really?
What is it?
Humidity.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's just, oh, God. But I will say that, it's nice to have relevancy in sports again. I mean, because when you do a sports talk show like this, to be able to discuss the things that Steve Cohen is doing right now and then compare some of the things that the Yankees are doing. And I know they, introduced their new captain yesterday, and, today will be their new pitcher. And, it's not like they're sitting on their hands. I mean, they had to spend almost $400 million on their captain. They had to spend it, and they did. All right, so you got to give them credit for that. They went out and got Rodon. You got to give them credit for that. Have they done enough? And is it true that Brian Cashman does believe in his heart that Donaldson and Hicks will be better players this year than they were last year? And what about Stanton? I mean, that's another one.
Right, exactly. He's one of the guys I would have looked to get him off this roster, maybe pay some of that money. He's still a guy who I think would be desirable for multiple franchises, but he just feels like he's a speed bump in the Yankees' way right now of what they really want to do. He's just another one of those guys that you feel like is all or nothing, or he's injured. And that's not what you want on this team. I have to believe that Brian Cashman knows deep down that Donaldson and Hicks on this roster is a disaster. He has to know that. But he's got his hands tied by the financial stuff. I have to believe that Brian Cashman, as smart of a baseball man as he is, understands that those two guys shouldn't be on the team. But you can't just dump him in the situation that he's in. So, I mean, they said stuff yesterday, and I don't know how much to believe. On one end of things, Hal's like, we're not done. I heard Susan say Brian Cashman's really trying hard to get rid of Donaldson and Hicks. I heard Brian Cashman also say that Donaldson's our third baseman next year.
As of right now, he is.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean like in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even 2 months that he'll still remain as their third baseman.
I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, that's the thing. Is Hal really that scared of the luxury tax? Now, I understand, and you break it down with Hal being the managing general partner and the other people that are involved there, and Steve Cohen basically being the one behemoth, like the asteroid that is just hurling towards Major League Baseball, and nobody can stop it. But the Yankees are the biggest brand that this country has to offer, arguably maybe the Dallas Cowboys, but I would still think it would be the Yankees. I mean, because the international appeal of baseball, in places like Japan is larger. The NFL's trying to get there, but it's larger. And you think about, Dominican
America,
Republic, Venezuela, all this. It's larger.
Yes.
So you have money. We know you have money. Are you that scared about, X amount of millions of dollars if you go over the luxury tax? Like, it's bizarre to me. I mean,
especially when you compare it to the Mets. And that's the only reason we're talking that way about the Yankees is because of what the Mets are doing.
Yeah.
Like that's the it's the unforeseen pressure that a guy like Steve Cohen brings to baseball.
Oh yeah.
And that unforeseen pressure is this guy's spending and you're not.
You know what it's like? I'll give you an analogy. It's like like let's say there's two best friends that are the same age. And one of them gets married, has kids, buys a house, doing all these things, right? Has a great job. And the other best friend is sitting there, and there's nothing really going on. There's no girlfriend, there's no house, there's no nothing. And then the spotlight just goes over to that person. What are you doing with your life? Where are you going? What is happening? So Steve Cohen is the friend that's sending out the Christmas cards with the kids and the brand new house and hosting and having charcuterie boards. And then the Yankees right now, the spotlight,
what are you doing?
What are you doing? When do you get married? When are you going to have kids? When are we going to have grandchildren? What the hell's going on? That's what's happening right now with the Yankees.
And speaking of Christmas ornaments and gifts, I did get an ornament.
Oh, look at that.
From one of our listeners. It's a Boomer and Geo ornament. They wanted us to hang it on the tree.
Oh, very cool.
Put a little picture of us on the front. That's
nice.
Our first. That by the way, that's our first picture ever.
First picture ever back in 2017 together. Yes.
Right. So I'm going to put this on our tree behind us.
All right. Beautiful.
I just got it, so it's only only have it for a couple of days here.
Right. So you just got it, and this was the letter that came in the mail. Yes, it's much love from the Larson, Voss, and Panino family.
You gotta love that.
Gotta love it. So they were all trapped in the house together during COVID, and they would listen to us, and her husband would be laughing. This is from, I'm not sure exactly her name.
Well, you get to the end of it.
But yeah, so her husband was laughing at it, and she didn't know what the hell was going on. Then she flipped on and saw a guy with a mullet. And then she started laughing as well, and she's a big listener now.
Right. She's not big into sports and has created problems for her husband because now she's asking a lot of sports questions that he gets annoyed with.
Right.
And he'd rather just listen to us and not answer the questions that she's asking about sports.
Right. Here's a question you could ask your husband. Why are the Yankees so cheap? That's a question you can ask your husband. But that press conference, I listened to it driving home yesterday. I mean, it was
propaganda.
Yeah, but it was also like very flatlining.
Yeah, well, listen, they got. I think the guys in the afternoon said trumped, not as Craig said, not as Donald Trump, but they got trumped by the Correa thing happening in the middle of the night.
Well, yeah, of course, and that's we said that in the morning about how this was going to be a tough thing to top. There was no way they were going to be able to do it, but just stand alone, like forget about Correa. It was just like. Everybody was just like so like I don't know.
Well, we all know it was going to happen. It wasn't like anything surprising about what was happening and what was taking place. And by the way, I think Aaron Judge should play with that shirt and tie underneath his jersey. He looks great in that. Doesn't that look great?
Yeah, I know. When you got the navy blue tie underneath.
God, man, he looked great
with
yesterday.
The collared shirt. Yeah, of course he is.
That's what a captain should look like. And congratulations to him for being captain. And that's a real honor, and it's something that. Is only bestowed on those players that truly reflect, in the eyes of the people who run the team, own the team, and have been around the team, truly reflect the values of the team.
And it really did sound like Aaron Judge the whole time wanted to be a New York Yankee. Like he thought about going to the Giants, and he considered it. But really his first choice was always the Yankees. And if they got to wherever it was, he was 100% going, which is what he did, meaning 100% staying with the Yankees, rather. So, I mean, that was a good thing if you wanted to look at it from a Yankee perspective.
And for our perspective and for what we do, we wanted him here.
Oh, of course.
We needed him here.
Of course. I mean, think about, all right, so right now the spotlight is on the Yankees because of what Steve Cohen is doing. Just imagine how much brighter that would be if Aaron Judge had left. If they lost Aaron Judge.
How about if Aaron Judge went to the Mets? That would have been the thing. I mean, hey, Steve Cohen, I do believe, I'm not saying that it was collusion or any of that stuff, but I do believe that Steve Cohen, while spending the money that he spent and probably ticked off at least 3/4, if not all of the owners, maybe with the exception of Hal, maybe he does tick them off. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I do believe that there was a respect there that Steve was not going to get involved in that. Just because he didn't feel like it was the right thing to do. Not collusion, because, look, Aaron made the money.
Yeah.
He got $40 million a year. So all you needed was 3 teams to get involved, and they all got involved, and the Yankees had to step up and meet the demands, at least of what the Giants put out there. I'm still surprised that the Yankees didn't have to go to where San Diego was.
Yeah, which is $400 million in another year. I mean, but that shows you that Aaron Judge really did want to be a Yankee. Just like we talk so much about how Jacob deGrom didn't want to be here, Aaron Judge did want to be here. So he said, give me that 9th year. Let me finish my career there, get up to that number that I'm looking at, and then we are good to go. But, yeah, I mean, now it's, what is else for the Yankees?
Well, Carlos Rodon is what is else.
Well, I know, but they brought
Tommy
him in.
Canley is what else.
Yeah, okay, great. And the
they're
Rodon
doing things.
The Rodon signing is something that, if Brian Cashman has not done great with free agent pitchers, in his history, so you kind of hold your breath every time he brings in
I have
somebody.
A question for you.
Yeah.
Who would you want? Would you want Kodai Senga or would you want Carlos Rodon?
Well, see, that's a very not this
We
wither
just
my
don't
way
know.
out of
We
the
don't-
question.
well, we
I
don't
haven't
know.
seen Senga pitch.
Right, we
I've
have
seen
no idea.
highlights of his ghost fork against other Japanese players. I have no idea.
I mean, but the point is, the Yankees are not doing anything. They're doing something. It's just keeping their own player in-house cost them almost, $500 million.
That's right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. All right. Boomer and Gio just getting started on this Thursday morning. Jets and Jaguars tonight in a monsoon.